Here we are again. Jesus, welcome. It's the Steel Toe, still the morning show. We'll call this an extension, less than 1 hour after we left.
Busy.
I stayed down here. I have not moved. Well, I moved from this seat for about 5 minutes, but I have not moved from this chair. I uploaded this morning's show to our Patreon for the people who like the audio-only version, patreon.com/Steel Toe Show. Then I started jotting down notes for our guest today, and then back to work. We're going to have Chrissie with us in about 5 minutes. We're just going to come in real quick, talk to you guys a little bit, gather any questions you might have, let you know what's coming up. And then it'll be on to talking to Chrissie Mayr, host of... She's got so many things.
I know. It's really hard to keep up with almost.
Like, I want to make sure that, like, even if we fuck up during the actual interview portion, she can go back and watch this and know that we plugged everything.
Sure.
But there's The Wet Spot at 6 p.m. Central on Compound Media. There's the Chrissie Mayr podcast. Then there's the Chrissie Mayr in the Morning Show on YouTube. Then there's clips on the YouTube channel. So here's what I'm going to do.
All your shows.
ChrissieMayr.com. There's the link in the chat.
Yep.
And we'll also put that in the description. I already fucked that up when I typed up the description.
Headlining all over the place.
What do we got coming up? Tonight, she's going to be in Bridgeport, Connecticut at the Stress Factory. A week from today, there's going to be the comedians of the Compound Show in Orlando at the Improv. That's the infamous Anthony versus Chad Zumock phone call we went over a while back. Chrissie and us are starting to kind of run in very similar circles. So our shows are they have some overlap, if you will.
It's been very fun.
So I thought it was maybe time to get her on. She called in impromptu to our evening show about a week ago or so. And that was kind of fun. We already had her scheduled on the show before that, but Frank Pellegrino has been great. Her fiance, Frank, has been very awesome in setting this up, so we want to thank him for that. But yeah, it seems like every week, Chrissie's, a couple times a week, is headlining somewhere. Headlining in. I mean, it's now at the point where she can kind of put her name on a show and you'll just assume she's headlining it.
Yeah.
At this point.
It's crazy how much she's accomplished
Not
so far.
MCing like Zumock. I'm sorry. Chad would never take...
If even.
Hey, Chad would never take an MCing gig. He was a cool kid in high school.
The coolest, really.
He was the coolest kid.
And that's what mattered.
And remember, we learned that this morning. That's what matters, is that you're cool in high school. So thank you guys for joining us. If you want to, hit like, share this, let people know that Steel Toe's back on for another half hour, 40 minutes or so. And in 2 or 3 minutes, we'll talk to Chrissie Mayr, I guess you'd call her the queen of the dabblers, but she's certainly the founder of the term.
She coined it.
Dabbler. She said to Stuttering John, I heard you dabble in comedy. It was an innocent question. John was offended to think that somebody didn't know about the great burgeoning stand-up career of one Stuttering John Melendez.
How dare she?
He's been on the Howard Stern Show. He's been a radio producer. He was the announcer on The Tonight Show. He was on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here.
He's been all over the world.
But how dare she not know about Stuttering John doing stand-up? Oh, man. You know, the thing about Stuttering John saying he does stand-up, though, is kind of gross because he's one of those people, and I think I heard Will Sasso complaining about this recently. He's one of those people who got famous doing something else and then just kind of jackknifed comedy.
Oh,
like
sure.
He kind of cut it off in the middle of the road and went, I'm in now.
It's my turn.
Yeah, he's terrible. He's not any good.
He budged in line and then he sucked.
But what's really interesting was that Chrissie was not even shitting on him when she asked the question.
She never is.
She said, I've heard you dabble in comedy. And he got really pissed off about that.
That seems to be a theme. She'll have a name like a John Melendez or Ethan Ralph on, and she'll ask some very innocent questions and kind of get her head chewed off.
And we will talk about the Ethan Ralph interview. Someone's already brought it up in the chat. Are you going to ask her about the Ethan Ralph thing?
Yes.
We're going to, where Ethan starts flipping the fuck out. And it wasn't, again, this is another one. Chrissie seems to stumble onto these controversies. She never creates them herself.
It's not her fault.
Somebody super chatted something and Chrissie read the question. And you have to. If super chats come in during our talk with Chrissie, we'll have to, ask her at some point when we have an opening in the conversation.
They paid.
Somebody asked her to ask Ethan about something regarding his mother. And she asked And Ethan, much like Zumock, much like Tony Michaels, is one of these guys who will sit there and bitch about something for 30 minutes and swear to God it doesn't bother them.
Look, it doesn't bother me to talk about this shit, but this is 300 reasons why I'm bothered.
Look, motherfucker, it doesn't bother me at all that you talk about my fucking mom, bitch. I don't fucking care, bitch. I don't give a fuck. You think it bothers me? I'm bothered as shit.
Why don't you go fuck your mom?
Yeah, go fuck your mom. How would you feel if I played something of your dead mom dying? And Chrissy's just sitting there going, I mean, I guess if you wanted to.
I'm sorry.
I didn't say anything, but it's fine. And Ethan just and then I think he called Frank the gay F word at one point.
Yes.
He gay F'd Frank during that interview.
There's
Chrissy.
Is.
All right, let's talk to her. Enough of this nonsense. Chrissie Mayr, how are you?
Hello, guys. What's up?
Oh, we are fantastic. First of all, thank you very much. We had to come on 5 minutes early, so we made sure we got all the plugs of all the different shows you do in.
Yes, you're very busy.
Oh my God, there's so many plugs. There's too many.
Yeah.
Are we live right now? Can I watch along? It feels weird talking to a black square.
Go ahead and watch along because I suck at tech, and if I open OBS before I open Zoom, then I can't see I can see you can't see us.
It looks good.
It's unfair.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, we are.
Oh yeah, it does look. It looks great.
Yeah. So we were talking about a bunch of stuff we were going to end up covering today. We didn't get to the thing I wanted to start off with, which is being one of the few women, maybe the only, at Compound Media. How is it that all of these middle-aged men are the ones starting drama?
Men are always so emotional, right? Isn't that what we say all the time? Yeah, I think I'm actually the second woman to join Compound Media. Joanne Nosachinsky.
That's right.
Okay.
Who is one of the co-hosts of Morning. And then I forget what the show was then called. They tried to rebrand and then they went back to being called Morning. She is completely dramaless. I don't know how she does it. She stays so squeaky clean. I think it's because she's not engaging very much on social media.
Okay.
Well, we were talking about you and the issues, quote unquote, you've been in, and we were going over them here. And none of them were actually you starting anything. You just kind of find yourself oddly in these places where somebody got pissed off out of nowhere.
Yes, that's what happens a lot. I seem to trigger weak men. I feel like that's something I've done ever since an early age. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't explain why else. My dad is mad at me. Now I have these other grown men upset at my existence. Yeah.
Right. Well, we'll get to the John thing. We'll talk about Ethan a little bit. People really love referencing the Ethan Ralph interview.
Yes.
We enjoyed it a lot here too.
Oh my God. That was wild.
It was.
But first, the Compound stuff. So you're there minding your own business. Mondays at 6 Central, you do the show The Wet Spot on Anthony Cumia's Compound Media. And now last week, the entire YouTube shock jock community sort of stops what it's doing to take a look at Kevin Brennan and Gino Bisconte nearly killing each other while Bob Levy plays old grandpa peacekeeper.
Insane.
Now, you had Gino on your show, I think, on Friday on YouTube and to talk about the whole thing. I know that those two don't like each other, and I know that Gino had also rubbed Bob the wrong way, and he came on Gino's show that day, but I mean, from the inside Compound perspective, is there anything we're missing, or did we pretty much see all of it?
I feel like I'm missing things too. I can only speculate as to what the underlying issues are, but again, I know for sure if I book either Gino or Kevin on a show, I know that the other guests that I book have to be physically strong enough to hold one of them back. So that that's a good booking note for people that want to have them on their shows physically in person. You have to book some other strong men who could potentially be able to pull them off each other.
Wow.
Right. The only thing I can think of is that maybe and this is totally speculation or else, because I don't know where else these feelings could have come from Kevin. He's kind of made his name and his brand off of shit talking. So I think it's a combination of of that, and maybe he has like underlying jealousy towards Gino for being 4 days a week at Compound. Like that's the only thing I can think of. Like maybe because I know that happens with me a lot. Like some folks will look at me and they think I don't deserve like whatever it is I have, so then they put you up here, and then they work to like start chipping away at you. And it's only in their head, and I wonder if that is what Kevin is doing with Gino. He has him up here, like, wow, you've got this 4 day a week gig at Compound. You don't deserve it. I'm more talented than you. Like, whatever's going on up there, and then so that's why he feels like maybe he has to chip it away at him.
Also, do you think it's kind of a bad combo too? Because Gino, like you look at the Aaron Berg stuff, the Pat Dixon, now Kevin Brennan. Do you think that Gino's also kind of that heel pro wrestler who like taunt, and then back off? And like Kevin, like maybe he just didn't back off quick enough on the Kevin Brennan one, because it seemed like the phone number, him giving out the phone number was kind of like the straw that broke his back. That like maybe Gino flies a little too close to the sun sometimes, to put it diplomatically.
It did seem like him giving out the phone number was the thing that really ticked Kevin Brennan off. However, Kevin did say of Gino and his show, like nobody watches this show. So I think like at this point, both of them should know each other pretty well. Like I think anybody who's going on a program with Gino should know that he is a button pusher and know that he likes to try to like
stir things up a little.
And as does probably Kevin as well. So
I would
say like work on making yourself untriggerable, you know, get yourself to a point like mentally, emotionally so strong so that there is nothing that somebody could say that would make you throw a hissy fit and like begin damaging studio property. Like that would be my advice. Like just get your shit together so that people can't fuck with you like that.
Poor Anthony Cumia wants to build himself a little streaming company where he can do his show, and he doesn't want to be the boss. And now all of a sudden he's got to be like the parent who goes, all right, you go over here. You go over here, and don't either of you look at each other.
Oh, don't hit him. No hitting, guys.
Yeah, he literally, Anthony literally said during that whole thing, no hitting. I say the same thing to my 5-year-old.
It is funny. He has like uncle babysitter vibes where it's like he's the uncle. He's not actually going to like discipline anybody. But like, again, he doesn't want anybody's head coming off on his watch.
Yeah. How do you like it over at Compound now? Because you've been in, and I don't know the inner workings, but how it looks as a subscriber. You've been in the Keith the Cop administration and the, I don't know, do we call it the E-Rock administration? Like, how do you like it?
Yeah, two administrations. It feels like I just got there, honestly. But I look back, I go, oh, wow, like my show was pitched and I guess like brought into the fold in 2019 and then started doing appearances in 2018. And I am forever like indebted to Gino and Aaron for bringing me on their show, because like I started going on Compound like right after my mom died. I was like, I need to start throwing myself into some projects or I'm just going to be like sitting around crying all the time. Like I need to distract myself from this. So that is when I really like fell in love with going on podcasts, and I would do these like goofy characters on In Hot Water. I loved Aaron and Gino for, giving me that first chance really to like explore and like play and just, a lady dies in a clothing donation bin. And I'd be like, oh, well, what if that lady was still alive? Like, what would her values be? What would she sound like? Like what would be important to her? So they would just let me come on and like, I'd be like, hey, I have this goofy idea for a character. It's like, and they'd be like, yeah, come. And it was fucking great. Like it was really, they kind of had trust that I would be funny consistently. And same thing, like Mike Figs would come on. He's somebody who like ended up, well, then I brought Figs on to Wet Spot to be my announcer, but then he quit. So he's at Gas right now with Aaron Berg. So everyone's like staying busy still. But that I really am grateful to the two of them for giving me a chance. And then, after so many appearances on the network, I was like, oh yeah, there is kind of a need for like a bimbo show, to cover the soft subject. Cover the soft subjects, like be entirely whatever, like female led. I hate like saying that. It's like being a woman is like this huge accomplishment. But I just was like, oh, there's nothing, there's no one talking about like fluffy subjects on Compound, like sex, dating, relationships. So pitched that, and yeah, and
kind of just took off.
Yeah.
Summer of 2019. And I think another reason why I stay out of some of the compound drama is like I'm only there 1 day a week.
True.
I think if I were there 2, 3, 4 days a week, like I would be more on my mind. But like I have all these other shows and like projects going on, so I can only like dedicate a fraction of myself to compound.
No time for the tensions.
Yeah.
No time for drama. I mean, like there's always drama always finds me, but
you gotta
I don't have time to make additional drama.
Yeah, sure. You got to admit though, and I'll admit it all day. People are like, oh, like, all it is drama. It's just drama. I love it. I love this shit. I love watching it. I mean, just mainline it. Anytime you guys start fighting with each other or Gino and Kevin are going to kill each other, because I don't know how you feel about it, but ultimately in my mind, I go, look, these two are both in their 50s. They're going to be fine. Like, let's just enjoy this for what it is. It's interesting.
Yeah.
It's you're watching it from the outside. You're a safe distance away. And you knew ultimately nobody's going to die or anything. So let's have some fun with it.
Yeah, they're not retards. Like they're both like consciously choosing to have this drama play out on camera. So it's like they must feel like it benefits them both. And perhaps it does, because people are tuning in to be like, what the fuck's going on? What grown men are fighting? Like, what is motivating this?
Yeah.
And it is kind of just,
I think it'd be kind of cool as a coworker of both of them too, to be just kind of not in the middle of any of that. Like you don't have a horse in the race, so you get to see both sides of it, and they obviously come on your show and talk to you about it. Like, do they treat you poorly for having the other one around, or?
Like I'm probably closer to Gino. I've had him on more of my shows. Like I was on Kevin Brennan's show like maybe years ago, and I think he did like Wet Spot once. So I just don't work as closely with him. So it's like maybe I will if I have to root for somebody, I would root for Gino.
Okay.
But it's because I know him and I understand him better, and I know that he is like a button pusher, and he is like I can see how people get like angry with him, but it's just like he's fucking living his life. Like he's a live and let live dude, and like again, like just don't be triggerable if you have an issue.
Well, and like broadcast wise, it is kind of a hard one for like onlookers and viewers to root for somebody, because broadcast wise, they're both like there's things about both of them that you can find kind of objectionable. Like there's things that you can go, oh, I don't like that about this guy. Or like Kevin is always angry at somebody. Yelling. Like Kevin's whole shtick is like he shits on absolutely everyone. And then Gino's whole thing is, like we said, taunt, back off. And then when they react, go, what? What did I do? So like
it's like cat and mouse.
Yeah, they both kind of play a weird Tom and Jerry game.
Yeah, you know? That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, it was wrong of Gino to give out Brennan's phone number for sure. Like I would hate if somebody did that to me, and it would really damage our friendship, because like even though you can, and even when I had Gino on my show, like right after that, he was like, what's the big deal? I'll give out my phone number, and then he's giving out his phone number during the live stream, and then sure enough, people are now starting to call him during his live stream, and it pauses him, and he goes sideways every single time somebody calls him. And I'm like, dude, this is why you don't give out your number on a live stream. Like you're fucking up my show a little bit. And of course I laugh because it's like,
I have to say, as someone who went back and watched it was a remarkably frustrating listen when that would happen. You're just like, God damn it, stop. But
it was funny. You do have to just like accept people for who they are, and like accept them for who they're not as well. And I think that's when you start, when you put expectations on people that like I don't know, that don't need to be there. I think that's when you set yourself up to be like disappointed or like
maybe
hate
just
somebody. And it's like ultimately like maybe none of us know Gino that closely. Like certainly the fans and the viewers like don't know any of us closely, but when you watch somebody every day, you start to feel like you do, and then it's like TV. It's like watching any other show.
I think in wrestling they would call Kevin versus Gino a heel versus heel program. So you can kind of root for whoever you want. Let me ask you a little about something that really kind of exposed you or exploded you into a different portion of audience, and that was, of course, the thing that's you're the starter of this. You're the big bang of this Stuttering John boom that everyone's seeing now, all because. And again, we talked about how you just find yourself in these controversies you never meant to be in. You asked an honest question of Stuttering John. I've watched it a couple times. You asked him, because he's known for Howard Stern, Jay Leno. So you asked him, and I think you used the appropriate word, actually a kind word. You said, somebody told me you dabble in stand-up comedy. He got pissed off. He lost his mind. You ended it perfectly by telling him that you too dabble in stand-up. That was fucking brilliant.
Thank you. Aren't we all dabbling? Come on.
We're all dabbling. Yeah. So he loses his mind. He now becomes the dabbler. Now there is a 5,000 person strong subreddit. The first time we shit on John on this show, like 3-4 months ago, we clipped it because we've been Stern fans. We've been Opie and Anthony fans. And we thought, we'll put this up for people.
Yep.
That's how we discovered there was this whole underground community all dedicated to just shitting on Stuttering John. And you're the one who started it.
Thank you for calling me the Big Bang of the Dabbleverse instead of the black hole, which could be another description. Yeah, it was. And it's funny because I was the first half of the interview. Like I wouldn't expect anybody to watch it because that's not the part that was funny. But the first half of the interview with him went splendid. Like I'm asking him about his glory days. It's all his strong suits. He's talking about that time he prank called Trump, and it was all great. And then when we get into stand up and has Trump been good for comedy? He said, is this whole interview going to be about Trump? And I think it was the first question I had asked about Trump, and I was like, wow. I was like, no. Yeah. I've been asking this of other comics, right? Aren't you also a comic? And looking back, I think he couldn't. And I was so I was so nervous and I was so awkward during this interview when things got tense because I'm not always great with conflict, and I was too anxious to tell him that his camera had frozen, and I didn't want him to get mad at I just don't like somebody mad at me, and I was too nervous to tell him his camera was frozen and to reset it. So maybe it did help that I didn't really get to see his true facial response, but I could tell he was upset that I was not fawning over him, and I was not so pumped that he was gracing my little podcast with his presence, and he's somebody who feels like oh, I'm doing your show, it's such a big favor. I can't believe you said I dabbled when I'm here, I'm doing your show. He's giving me a fucking kidney. I'm it's an hour of your time, buddy. And no one's forcing your hand here. And then even after the fact, he's oh, I didn't want to do it. And even at the end of the interview, he's can I get back to watching the game? I'm yes, John.
Jesus.
Go back to watching your game.
Please. Yeah. Before they shut the cable off. So you have the John interview, and then all this starts happening. Kumi is shitting on him. Carl from Who Are These Podcasts, who's a wonderful human being, he starts getting dicked with by John legally. And so he just starts leaning in. And how is it for you? You said you don't like confrontation, but you accidentally created this entire conflict economy of Stuttering John content. And now, ironically, you get to be the one, again, sitting back and watching it.
It is crazy because that small moment, I'm not saying I'm fucking anything. I'm not hot shit at all. But that tiny moment where I embrace dabbling myself, I'm yes, I also dabble because I just didn't know what else to say.
Yeah.
It's almost like that was a microcosm of what was to come. Everyone embraced dabbling, and now there's the dabbling subreddit. I just went to the Dabblers Anonymous meetup last Friday.
Oh, geez.
It feels neat. And it's also he really should be embracing this. He should do a podcast with freaking Opie and Chad. And he should, he's there is a universe where he could be a lovable goof, where it's just a show of his green screen falling down and he's swatting away roaches. And he's he's sad that his high profile guest only gave him 20 minutes. There are elements of John that are funny when he's Howard if he even said himself when he's not trying to be funny.
Yeah, there's that lack of self-awareness and the fighting against the current that, it makes him more funny to cover, but you're also going, you could do something with this. You mentioned the Opie and Chad Zumock thing. Dude, you could get that fucking weirdo Tony Michaels in there. There's a lot of of these guys just don't. They claim to be comics. They have no sense of humor about the person you need to be having a sense of humor of most, which is yourself.
Right. Stop struggling and just embrace it.
Yeah.
It's a lack of self-awareness ultimately, because any kind of online person, you have a chat going, you read your comments on some form or another, be it YouTube or your social media platforms, like you begin to know like how people think of you and what people like about you. I'm not saying you have to be like dance monkey dance, everything you do has to be for the fans, but like over time, if you're turning yourself into a business, like you should have some sense of like what people like about you and what people want to see more of.
Right.
Because you can best express like your strengths in the world.
Yeah.
And especially like on camera. And I think with like, with the example of like Stuttering John and Chad, like they're not self-aware enough to know where their strengths are and what people like about them. They're trying to be like this other thing, or they're trying to be better than what people think of them. And it's like, I don't know, almost like they've put a value, like they've lowered the value of being like a goof or like a lovable loser or like a dabbler or like somebody who's too drunk to be a feature act. You know what I mean? Like there's something nice about embracing who you are and being the best you can be, instead of like pretending like you're at Sebastian Maniscalco level of headliner.
Yeah.
Like, no, you know what I mean? Like people are not dumb. Like we see kind of what you are, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I said it, and I know that you and Frank have had your issues with Zumock a bunch, and we just like probably a month and a half ago, he kind of got on our radar because we saw him he goes, I'm going to jump into the Stuttering John thing. And we just went, you phony. Like this is clearly you're doing this because it's blowing up.
I want to make money too.
And then it was funny to watch that entire Dabblers Anonymous group. And I made a video of it straight away. And I said, nope, they're going to reject him. You watch this. And the Dabblers group just fucking went, nope, this guy's full of shit, not him. And then this is so classic Chad. I've watched him do it to you. I've watched him do it to Anthony, to Kevin, to Gino, to everybody at Compound. Chad tries to endear himself to a thing. Chad tries too hard. Thing makes fun of Chad. Chad turns on Thing and pretends he never wanted to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think I don't know if something maybe fell on his head at a young age.
Yeah.
Or what, like, I don't know.
Not enough hugs.
I think I sometimes like to get into like the reasons why I almost was a psych major. And you look at how like Chad is in a conflict situation, or even like Stuttering John, and it's almost like they are like, this is why I feel bad for them ultimately. I think they're like perhaps like developmentally disabled, because you look at the emotional response to like conflict or feeling cornered or not feeling accepted or feeling like rejected, and it's like it's the response of like a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They really lash out.
Yeah, and like, so I don't know, maybe something happened, but like everyone's got their issues. Like I fucking have tons of issues.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if you heard one of his latest things though, Chrissy. You may be onto something with the teenager thing. It may just be a constant youthfulness, because as Chad has said in the last couple of days, he was really cool when it mattered in high school.
He was so cool in high school, and I was just like, that cracked me the fuck up. I was like, oh my God. I was like, wait a minute, like, and it's such a stereotype. Like, the person who's cool in high school is the one that is the only reason why all of us still have Facebook, so we can check up on that cool guy from high school, see how fucking fat and losery he's become, and how he like, has a miserable life. It's usually the losers from high school, the nerds, the fatties, the braces wearers that like have the glow up,
the band
and like
they
they end up crushing it in adulthood. So it's like, why would you brag about being that stereotype? And I think he's kind of like regressing to like a childlike state. It's like, when was the last time I was crushing it? Oh, high school. Yeah, let's talk about that.
He feels good there. Mm-hmm.
But also,
we're like psychologists.
I know.
Here. We're like, yes, I feel like I should have like a clipboard and a white coat.
Right, but that's why I always enjoy these people. I was telling April this on the morning show because Chad was lashing out again this morning. The chat starts going, Chad's lashing out. You have to see this. So we went and watched it, and April goes, don't you ever feel bad? And I said, no, I don't see him as a person. He's just a thing.
That's like a woman thing. Like I say that every day. I'm like, I feel bad for him. And then I'll listen to something where he's like talking so much shit about me and Frank. And then I'll be like, all right, he's still at it.
See what you get for treating him as a human, though? It's like treating a viper like a human. Just the minute you turn around, it's going to bite you. So don't treat it like a person. Like I said this morning, He's a shovel hanging up in my garage. I don't yell at my shovel. I don't get mad at my shovel. If my shovel does something stupid and funny, I laugh at my shovel. That's all Chad is.
It truly must be a woman thing, like Chrissy understands here. Like anytime I'll say I feel bad for any of our lol cows, even a little bit, just because I take pity on them, the whole chat is just full of men. Just don't ever feel bad for this person. They put themselves there, you know.
And even laughing at people like Chad, I think it takes us. You talked about John and how he can't take a joke, and Chad how he can't take criticism. I think for all of us who laugh at him, it comes from an ability for us to laugh at ourselves, to let go of that ego and all that stuff and go, look, even the term lol cow, I've said numerous times, dude, as long as we're talking into one of these microphones, we're all quote unquote lol cows. We're all cattle to be slaughtered at anyone's criticism at any time. It's the person who thinks they're going to beat the internet who always ends up losing.
Right. It's open season.
And why do you want to be cool? Like we're all clowns ultimately. Like you guys are a little bit more like respectful, like radio types, but like me, whether you're a Stuttering John or a Chad or a Sebastian Maniscalco or a Louis CK, like we're all clowns ultimately. So it's like we're here to entertain people, and like how you try to do that while taking yourself too seriously, like must be exhausting.
It has to be.
And you're also blocking your own flow. Like when you do that and you spend time being jealous of other people and you spend time trying to like take people down, like you're literally blocking your own, and I'm going to sound like a crystal something astrology chick right here, but when you spend time doing that, you're literally cutting off your own manifestation, your own flow to opportunity, your own life is just harder when you're, because you really only have yourself to compare yourself to a year ago. Don't compare yourself to somebody else who has a completely different life path and set of skills and struggles and issues.
Well, people like Chad try so hard to be somebody else instead of, like she said, like there's certain things to embrace about yourself that could be really funny.
My theory on Chad is that the guy's pushing 50. It hasn't gone where he wanted it to go, and he now has two. Again, we're putting on the lab coat and the clipboard. You're right, but it's
kind of fun.
He's got two choices now. As he's pushing 50 and it hasn't gone where he wanted, he can either face the reality and adjust, or he can create the own world in his head, and when the compound people clash with that, he can lash out. And unfortunately, he and John both have, I think, chosen the latter.
Oof. And I remember, I'm trying to think, like, how did this all start? How did I even like get wrapped up with Chad? He was shitting on my friend Stacey Pressman, who's a comic, and I think I just came to her defense one day on Twitter, and then that's how I got like roped in. And now it's like 2 years later, and he's like obsessing about my fiance, somebody who's not a public figure, like literally talks and thinks of him every day. I'm like, what's going on? Is he gay? Like, what is happening here? Like, I don't understand fully.
Yeah, the obsession with Frank. I mean, Anthony brought it up when he was talking to Chad the other day. Like I said, I'm fucking obsessed with this shit. I love it. But he was saying about you two. Anthony mentioned you and Frank specifically. He says, do you think Frank and Chrissy want you at that Comedians of the Compound gig, which, by the way, is a week from today, October 27th.
Yes, check it out.
Orlando, Florida. So all of you guys who came over, somehow like a year and a half ago, we got this big influx of Bubba the Love Sponge fans. Don't fucking ask. But somehow we got a bunch of them, and they're all in Florida. So, guys, go to Orlando a week from today. Go to the Comedians of the Compound show. Chrissy will be there. Anthony, Gino, everybody from over at Compound. Yeah. But he was talking about going there, and it just got really weird and creepy, like he was about to have a mental break. And specifically, Anthony said, do you think Frank and Chrissy want you there? Is that just because, like, Chad has gone so out of his way to go after Frank for no fucking reason?
It's really so much. Like at one point he said that after Gino got like punched and like, you know, needed jaw surgery, like Chad actually said like Chrissy deserves the Gino treatment. So it's like,
Jesus. Oh my God.
It's like, oh God, that all that and more, you know, it's like, it's like the really egregious ones kind of like stick out in your head and you remember, and you're just like, yeah, like I don't, even if you were just not being like actively an asshole, like, honestly, probably all it would take to include this person would be like, don't actively be such an asshole every day for 2 years.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it's a strange obsession, I guess. And I don't know. Like I've heard that he has showed up places where he's not booked, and I've heard he's showed up at morning radio, claiming that he is opening for somebody who he wasn't, just to like try to sneak on to the morning radio show. And so I've heard that he shows up at clubs pretending he's on it and tries to like sneak on. So it's like, okay, we just want to avoid. I mean, it could only go wrong. It could only bring negativity and chaos. Like it's not going to be an asset. It's going to be a liability.
Do me a favor. Yeah, don't play the the internet game of, oh, does it look bad if we just ban him from the show? Don't let him in.
Yeah, he got to a point with Kumi on the phone almost where he sounded like it'd be a threat. Almost.
Yeah, if I'm not allowed in, it could be a problem. It's like just kick the fucking idiot out.
Like that's just not a guy you have around. For sure.
And it's like, aren't we losers and tool bags? So like, why do you want to be around us? Aren't we not Jim Brewer? Aren't we like not the other cool kids that you feature for? So like, why would you voluntarily want to be a part of this?
It's very telling. He does just want to sit at the cool kids table.
He just wants to be there, and he wants to hold Frank's hand, and Frank won't have it. That's all it is.
It is very odd to hear that he would say such a thing to yourself, like, oh, you need the Gino treatment. Like
right,
you and Frank both seem very pleasant. I can't imagine why that would be necessary.
Chrissie needs to be punched in the face at a bar, apparently.
It's very so now
he
he's
even was like threatening like to have a go at Frank, like, oh, Frank won't come at me in person. Frank won't say this to my face. I'm like, what are you doing? Again, it's this high school mentality of like, we solve all things through proving how cool we are, or like a fist fight behind a deli. And it's like, most of us are past that.
It's a very insecure thing to say too.
A little bit.
Behavior,
a little bit. I do want to ask you about the January 6th stuff, because I was watching I was watching Tony Michaels on. I saw a clip of Tony Michaels on Stuttering John, and Tony does the thing that Chad does where he does the hacky radio trick of, I don't know anything about the person, and then goes on to quote their bio.
Yeah, he does that.
Yeah, he does that whole thing where he was talking about Chrissie specifically, and he goes, and yeah, I don't know anything about Anthony. Does he even have a show anymore? Well, anyway, he's got this bitch on her network, this treasonous insurrectionist, and he's like yelling.
He's mad. He's
like
angry.
Spit flying out and just calling you this treasonous insurrectionist bitch, and just really going nuts about it. And I have to ask you, how are you catching any shit? I mean, do these people not know that there was actually a protest aside from like the people who went in, and that you were literally calling into Compound Media covering the whole thing? I mean, they act like you went and stole a Thomas Jefferson bust out of the rotunda.
Or like you shit on a desk.
For the people who are not free thinkers and who just listen to mainstream media, like, that's all you can expect them to say when it comes to January 6th. Like, they're just going to regurgitate the talking points they heard off CNN. Like, they're not going to, I don't know, speak to somebody who was there. They're not going to look for like alternate news sources. They're not going to look for different points of view, because it's like, nope, I found, and like all of us are probably guilty of this at one point or another, but it's like, oh, I found the thing that I agree with, and I don't want to find information that contradicts it. So I'm just going to go with that. And that is kind of what most people go with when it comes to January 6th. But it's like, didn't go inside the building. I was there in DC in November and December, and also of course on January 6th, because I was covering these were rallies. These were planned rallies. This was not like a secret insurrection, or if there was, like, I wasn't in with the group that were the FBI informants or whatever the fuck that was going on. Like, I was just there like covering it, because I felt like, particularly with November and December, they were covered really unfairly by the mainstream media. They would just do a quick flyover in the morning, be like, oh, look, there's nobody here. It's 6 a.m.
Yeah.
This is a non-event. Trump has no supporters. So I was like, I feel like that's not the case. So I went in November, went in December, same thing, like hundreds of thousands of people. And then like on the 6th, like I've heard people say there was 1 million people there, that it was the most amount of people I've ever seen at anything I've ever been to.
Right. And
same thing, just there covering. It was always going to be like, we meet at the what was it called? Like the Grand Lawn. I forget the names of it.
Sure.
But like, we're going to meet there. The speakers are going to start in the morning. Like, I remember waiting there like real early in the morning. And I did this like wide shot. It was just like people as far as the freaking eye could see. And And what was really cool about going to these rallies would be like that there'd be like always a bunch of Chinese ladies there with their signs like anti-CCP, and they would like come up and like be so willing to talk to you. We're from China, like they just want to get the word out about the CCP, and
interesting.
Like and then I'd interview people from like Venezuela or Cuba and be like, yeah, like we didn't leave these countries to come to America to see the same shit start to pop off, and that's like what we're seeing. And they'll like get in your face. They wanted to be interviewed. They're like, oh, somebody with a camera, like I want to tell my story.
Yeah. Now
and then you have all the other groups of people there too. And so I was like, there were more people on the 6th.
Yeah.
But again, like I was just there, like really like cover what was going on. Basically, like look how many people are here, and this is why people are here. And then like ultimately that led to like, you know, my album, because I was like, why not just I have jokes about being there that day, and from how like people kind of came after me just for being associated with the day. But yeah, most people just don't know or want to talk to anybody that was there that day. They just see the highlight reel that they play on CNN of that one side of the building.
Yeah.
Where it was like, it looked kind of intense. Like I was on, like, that's why I joke around. Like for me, it was pretty chill. Like I was on the other side of the building. It was like flags. It was like kumbaya. It was like sing-alongs, picnics, dogs, costumes, kids.
And then on the other end, you've got Goat Boy just fucking running into the building.
They Goat Boy showed up, and they completely forget that you're allowed to have a peaceful protest, and there's just people there for a common cause and all of that.
Goat Boy,
and people
Goat
totally
Boy and
forget.
the FBI agents showed up, and it was on from
People
there.
totally forget or willingly forget that with the Women's March, like there was a whole crew of people that marched into the Capitol wearing pussy hats, but like. You know, the like Pelosi and whatever, they'll call that participating in democracy. But when Trump people do it, or when like regular upset Americans do it, like, oh, you're insurrectionists. So they clearly just wanted to like make an example of everybody they can on that day. And like, I remember seeing people like climbing up the wall on the side of the building I was on. And I was like, it was all dudes climbing up. And I was just from like a physical standpoint, I was like, I bet I could do that. Like, it would be nice to like physically see if I could do that. But I'm glad I held back.
Well, and like you said before, there's a lot of shit about January 6th that people don't cover. You mentioned this to us before. The food.
The food was great. Yeah, nobody ever talks about the food. Nobody talks about the costumes. There was a guy wearing a skeleton costume with a sign that said, I voted for Biden 9 times. I'm like, this is fucking hilarious.
That's awesome.
A year and a half later, they're still looking into it, but none of the food truck vendors have been called.
They do not show that side of it.
Oh, it's unfortunate.
And I remember we were talking to this guy that was like a construction worker, because we were in one of these like kind of fake sort of construction trailers, and he was just in there, and a lot of people had come in there like to charge their phones. It felt like a little find. It really felt like an oasis because it was warm in there. People were charging their phones. There were hand warmers. There was like somebody had found like hot chocolate, so we're doing like hot water and hot chocolate. It felt like really lucky because it was like a really cold day in January, obviously. And the guy was saying, because he was there setting up for the I was gonna say the insurrection, setting up for fucking Biden. What was it called? The
inauguration.
Induction?
The inauguration.
The placement of our dear leader. And he was saying like, we're not setting up as many chairs because like it's not really open to the public. Like it's just what he was describing was like atypical of most inaugurations, where it's like they want a lot of people to come like
in support.
He made me think like, oh, like this is only a few select people are being invited to this because like most people don't really support this. So that was interesting.
I want to get to one more thing, but I will do a couple of chat questions that have come up. I haven't been able to keep my eyes on the chat too much, but I do want to acknowledge Michael Gavin Ali, $5 super chat, says, I remember Opie was going to have you on his show and bailed on you. Yep. What are your thoughts on Opie?
I was supposed to be on Opie's show. I was booked through Carl Ruiz, and I remember it was like a summer day in the city, and that as the day went on, I was like, either the communication between Carl and Opie is so bad, or he just kind of booked me to hang out and like basically have a date with him, because like I came into the city, we were hanging out at his Cuban restaurant, and we're like waiting for Opie, and I'm like, oh, it was supposedly all confirmed, and then I was like, oh, is he coming in and all? And then it's like hours went by, and then it was like, oh, he's on a boat with his friends in Long Island, and I'm like, was he ever gonna fucking come? Like, it was just And then I remember Carl, like, he's like, oh, but I know this really great place that sells meringues a couple blocks down. So we like went and got meringues together. And I'm like, I feel like, is this sneakily becoming a date? Like, it was annoying because I wanted to do that. I may have been tricked into a date.
Yeah. You thought the communication between Carl and Opie was bad then. It's even worse now.
Oh, God. Right. It's like he doesn't answer his texts anymore.
Not at all. We actually tried to have, it's crazy about Opie, man. We tried to have him on here, and he responded back and said yes initially. And then to give you an idea into the way Opie thinks and lives, he then wrote me back about a half hour later and said, I've been digging through your channel, and I found this. And it was a clip. It was when the Gino Pat Dixon thing happened, and I was talking about Anthony and how he has to handle this fucking madhouse at Compound, and about how much that must be a pain in the ass, and he's not much of a manager. He doesn't want to be a boss. And all I said was, I literally said, I mean, Opie may be unfunny and not very talented, but at least he's got a family and something to fall back on. Anthony's got to run these fucking guys. So I made that little joke, and Opie goes, I didn't know you spent your time trashing me. I don't think I'm going to come on your show. I wish you the best of luck. And we'll what do you say? We'll reanalyze. We'll revisit this in the fall. And I'm like, no, I'm shitting on Opie now.
Wow.
I'm not going to be put on the revisit list like I'm on Opie
probation. And wouldn't
probation.
you want to go on a show? Like, that's part of why I wanted to go on Opie's show. Like if this person's heard of me at all or not, like it's probably not positive. So it's like, wouldn't you want to go on a show where you think they don't like you and try to leave a positive impression and like change people's minds?
There's one other question I'm going to ask you, and it's to prove a point to some of our audience. A while back, we got put on notice in Red Bar's Bring Back group. He had banned all of his audience from listening to this show. He said, don't you listen to that Steel Toe. You're banned from here if you do. Well, it led to a lot of Red Bar people coming here and kind of airing their grievances with Red Bar to us. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. I understand. But we're still working on reforming a few of them. So we got a guy, Clay, in the chat, bringing up an old Red Bar thing. He wants me to ask Chrissie about the Christmas presents. And I love the Red Bar fans. Like, it's been kind of amazing over the last couple of years. Like, in my DMs, like, people will be like, I heard of you because of Red Bar, because, like, and we were, like, hating on you, but, like, now I'm actually a fan. So yeah, that happened to us, too.
I welcome everyone. The really like the shortened version of the story, and there's so many versions of the story, then you can go listen to them, I'm sure, all over his thing. But it was a Christmas party. We were at a restaurant. We were wrapping up. The restaurant was shutting down. Everybody's leaving. Our Compound Media party was among the last to leave the restaurant as it's closing. I think the party was in January, and now I've heard people say, oh no, it was December, but like I don't know if that's as important. And as we're leaving, I saw a shopping bag on a table, and like, okay, no one's coming back for it. It's just left there. Everyone's gone. We're getting ready to leave. I take a peek in the shopping bag. It's just clothes.
Yeah.
It wasn't gifts. Nothing was wrapped up. These weren't children's toys. This wasn't Toys for Tots. This wasn't a Christmas tree. This wasn't a Grinch situation. This was a fucking shopping bag with clothes in it. And I go, oh, sweaters, medium. My friend Larry was next to me. And I go, you're a medium, you're small, here, enjoy. And that was fucking it. But I enjoy the ways that the story has been twisted and the fan fiction has been fun.
Yeah.
So it's like, I wish the real story were as exciting as the rumors, but it really was just like, oh, here,
It really is. No offense to Clay and no offense to your Christmas party. It sounds like an absolutely boring fucking story.
I know. You have to laugh at how shit gets twisted out of control, though.
Yeah.
It is fun.
And if anything, like, I'm kind of like the Robin Hood of sweaters,
You
and
just
it's
gave
like,
out some nice sweaters to people.
And we were watching it for a while. Nobody was coming back for it. It was like very much the end of the night. Very much things are closing down.
No name tags.
I was like, here, buddy. And like, he fucking wore the sweaters, looked great in them, still has them, like living his life.
Well,
so,
I mean, thank God we got that cleared up. Holy shit.
I'm so sorry if that makes me a horrible person.
Yeah. Well, Clay has now changed his opinion officially in the chat. He's laughing at your Robin Hood comment. All is right with the world. Clay, I hope you're happy. God bless. The last thing I want to ask you about, you talked about how you're uncomfortable with conflict. You don't like it when you're in the middle, like you talked about in the John interview and everything like that. What situation had you more nervous? The John thing, or maybe nervous isn't the right word. The John thing or the Ethan Ralph situation?
Wow, they were both really different. I was more confused at the Ethan Ralph situation because like he and I were like kind of buds and friendly and like had his phone number. Like I remember we did chat a bunch after his mom died because my mom has already been dead for a while. So I was like, oh, welcome to the Dead Moms Club. And like, gave him his welcome pin. Right. Yeah, gave him his welcome folder and everything. Here's what to expect. But we were like kind of buds, whereas like me and Stuttering John were never buds. And it was more like, I am interviewing you because people will be interested in hearing from you, Whereas Ethan, like he had done, I think, Wet Spot once. He had done like my other show a few times.
Okay.
And with Ethan, it was like I was so confused because the misunderstanding was so dumb and needless. Mm-hmm. And even after I would explain myself multiple times, like, no, I'm not laughing at your mom being dead. I am laughing at the super chat that someone sent in.
Right.
It was very
that said,
funny.
like, oh, you made your mom walk in the sun in the middle of the summer. Like your mom walked in the heat and had to go to dialysis. I'm laughing at the visual of that because I didn't know all of the Ethan Ralph lore. I didn't know that scenario actually happened.
Sure.
So had I known that happened, I probably would have contained myself a little bit better. But I'm like reading it and I'm cracking up because that just the visual I have in my head is fucking funny. And
you had the ability to see humor in something. Yeah. God forbid.
And it seemed like he just decided that was going to be a problem. And even after like many explanations, it was like it didn't even matter. I'm like, oh, okay, this isn't even an honest connection anymore. This isn't even an honest conversation. Like you are making the decision to like have this turn into wrestling instead of just like buds chatting.
He honestly, it was like you were trying to talk down Braveheart. I mean, he was just sitting there shouting and you're like, no, Ethan, it's okay. And then it was like in the movies where they're trying to corral someone and hold them back and then some innocent bystander gets punched while they're flailing around because Frank came in and tries to go, Ethan, it's okay. And he starts calling him the gay F word and now Frank's catching it too. It's like, Jesus.
And he was like, what? And he would like curse me out. He would like go on a rant and then I'd be like, Ethan, I can't help but feel there's still nugget of misunderstanding here. I'm like, I was like, I don't want you to go to bed angry, buddy. Come on. Let's work this out.
Yeah. No, you fucking bitch. These fucking assholes. My fucking mom died. And then he keeps asking you, how would you feel? And you answer. He kept asking you, and you kept answering him honestly. And it's like the answer you were giving him wasn't good enough. And it's just, you run out of answers at some point.
He'd be like, well, how would you feel if somebody unearthed like some shit that you said to your mom? I was like, I've never said shit to my mom. Like I don't get into fights with her like that. Like we were really close. It's like, it's my dad more so that I have like shit with. So I'm like, there's no example of me cussing out my mom on a live stream. Just like,
for being uncomfortable with like confrontation and stuff, you really carried yourself gracefully through that one.
I thought
you could have got a lot more, uneasy throughout that whole thing, but
he felt horrible because I was just like, I was so confused. I was like, no, I've definitely explained myself well. Like, I'm like, it definitely can't be me being shitty. I'm like, my mom's dead too. So it's like that argument is not really holding up.
Yeah.
You seem to be a lot of the source of male insecure projection.
It is weird.
I think I have a talent for triggering weak men, for sure.
You find them, for sure.
It might be. I mean, if you want to call Chad Zumock a weak man, that's a hell of an assumption.
Yeah, right. Who knows?
Might call you bitch
I think I just time. I just observe, I listen, I respond as honestly as I can, and that seems to just like get me into trouble.
I think there's an innocence about like the way you're going about it. Like you said, you didn't know the Ethan Ralph lore. It's like these people expect you to be obsessed with their background and then you're not. So you come at it from this very genuine, curious place. And then to them that comes off as like egging them on or something.
Almost insulting, maybe.
Yeah.
Like they're so cynical, they can't expect somebody coming to them with like an open, honest heart or anything like that. It's like, oh no, you are only bringing this up to set me up for a troll or to like put me down. And it's like, no,
you're hurting me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, John did the same thing with the term dabbling. Ethan did the same thing with the super chat. It does. We're starting to, if you want to get your clipboard out, that's a note to take.
I was just thinking, it's almost like a weird thing where somebody's really got a troubled past and they finally go to the therapist and the therapist starts kind of pointing out what they're doing and they're trying to help them. You know, it's not insulting, but they have a break before they get to the crying part where they let go and they just get pissed.
Yes.
And that's what they do with you almost.
Like, consider the possibility that not everyone is out to get you.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
You're fucking Robin Williams now at this point going, it's not your fault.
Yes.
Ethan, it's not your fault.
And I'm trying to force hug everybody. No,
yes, I'm trying to hold you.
Get it.
I want to see Ethan have a Matt Damon scream cry while hugging Chrissy and going, I'm so sorry.
See,
It's not your fault. It's not your fault you got brain damage in Portugal. It's not your fault. It's not your fault.
This is what I'm picturing, yes.
We talked to Cog, the guy who kind of set that whole Portugal thing up, and when we interviewed him, I will say this: he did not seem the least bit remorseful about it. He seemed to be quite entertained by what he'd done. So that's just that whole Ethan Ralph thing is a universe that I dipped a toe into it, and I went, oh, this is way too fucking crazy. I'm out of here.
See, and I think it's so interesting. I didn't realize that you and Ethan were actually kind of pals before that interview there.
We were like friendly. We were like, oh, like, not so.
You're
not
cordial.
Like he's the first person I would call if I were in like a bad place, but like, oh yeah, you're gonna be in New York, come on my show, or like, oh, it's been a couple months and you haven't been on my podcast. Yeah, come back. Let's see, like, because I remember I had him on initially to talk about his drama with Nick Rekieta, and he felt like he was supposed to go on You Are Here right before the show went under. It was Elijah and Sydney's show on the Blaze, and he felt like he was being set up like for a gotcha, and like. So I was like, "Ooh, let's talk about like that drama." And so I almost felt like I was a little bit on his side. Like I'm trying to show him in a positive light. Like I just want people to understand him.
You could have been
like,
a therapist or something.
I really like podcasting and why I started and went to 4 days a week. I'm like, I like talking to people who've been canceled, who've been like misunderstood, who have been like branded something negative on the internet. Because I just think people can constantly like reinvent themselves, and especially after January 6th, I'm like, okay, I know what it's like when people like misrepresent you on purpose. So,
right. Yeah, you got once again, January 6th. Another thing you got caught up in the middle of with like no ill intent whatsoever.
You got buried by Goat Boy.
Yeah,
like I remember before people were like, oh, be careful, and I didn't know what to expect. There was a little bit of a sense of like, there's going to be more people. Like it's more. Because it was like right after, I guess, the election.
Yeah.
Well, shit. When was the election? November?
Yeah. Right. Yes.
So it was like
that's around about the time.
There was November. There was December. Yeah. It was like Stop the Steal.
Yeah.
Each of the rallies had its own like theme or title or something.
You have a
more fired up and upset about the 6th going into it.
Chad, John, Ethan, January 6th. You really do have a way of like Forrest Gumping yourself into things.
Very strange.
You like Forrest Gump ended up involved in Watergate and all this other shit when he had just no intention, just trying to live and get by. One more thing, Lazy Shorts, Opie and Anthony with $5 says, would you be willing to fund a sequel to Catch Me If You Can about Chad's credit card scheme?
Oof. Yeah, like, oh, if only he were just a little bit better at that stuff, he could be like a swarthy, like have like a movie made about him or something. Yeah.
I think he's looking closer to King Robert Baratheon at this point than he is Leo DiCaprio. I don't know.
It's not aging well.
No.
Just start building up your own credit, little by little, and get your own credit cards one day.
But Chrissy, that takes work. Okay.
And he can't yell at you about it.
And he was cool in high school.
Yeah. Cool kids in high school shouldn't have to work on their credit, bro.
Yeah.
That's true. Their rich parents just gave them as much money as they needed because they were cool. And it's adulting is hard. Credit. I get it. Sometimes I want to revert back to like a childlike state. So I get it.
Well, I think the last thing we're going to say, because I didn't realize this, I didn't know if this was recent or if it missed me or whatever, but you and Frank are engaged. I wanted to say congratulations on that.
Congratulations. It's beautiful.
Thank you. I'm so excited. I didn't think I would feel any different because we've been together like 7 years and I'm just like, oh, it really feels like we're married. But like when he proposed, I was like, oh my God. Like it's really cool. I'm excited.
That's awesome.
Well, do you know when yet or are you or not quite?
We're gonna start looking after this Florida content house stuff,
cool.
and after the show, because his brother got married last Sunday, so it was like everyone's kind of focusing on that wedding.
Yep.
And I was a bridesmaid, so that was good. The dress was green, so it went with my hair really nice.
I don't mean to sound like a
All right,
creep.
I'm gonna leave you two to it.
I did see it. You looked beautiful. She was beautiful. It was awesome.
It was really fun.
Yes.
Yeah, we're gonna start looking. Oh, like don't leave. We're gonna start maybe like next summer. I don't know what they have available.
She starts talking about Frank, and she starts doing the whole.
She's playing with her hair
excited.
and just kind of.
No, that's very exciting. Congratulations.
God, it's getting so gay. I don't know what to
Aaron
do with
can't
my
handle
emotions.
This. He cannot.
Oh, man. By the way, we have ChrissieMayr.com pinned to the top of the page there. We'll put that in the description and all of that stuff. I mean, Chrissy, honestly, with all the stuff you're doing, the YouTube channel, of course, Chrissie Mayr on YouTube, the Chrissie Mayr podcast, Chrissie Mayr in the morning, the Wet Spot on Monday with Compound Media. I think it's a lot easier to send people to your website, ChrissieMayr.com, and you have all the links to all that stuff up there. Tonight, headlining in Bridgeport, Connecticut at the Stress Factory there in Bridgeport.
Wow.
Very fun.
You know everything.
Yes.
It's all right here.
Next weekend, or next Thursday, Comedians of the Compound. Those have to be fun shows.
I'm really excited. Yeah. I know they're not part of the Cool Kids Club, but Alex Stein and Lila Hart will be on those shows as well.
I saw that.
Wow.
Yeah, it's awesome. Like the Content House came first, and then we got this gig going with the Orlando Improv. So I'm like, oh, this is great. Like it's just the more the merrier.
I have to ask, have you done anything else with Alex Stein previously? Like, is he as obnoxious in person as his videos, or is he pretty cool?
He comes off more obnoxious in his videos. He's actually like, he's such a sweetheart in person. He is just like, his inner child is so alive and
You
well.
can see it, yeah.
And he also is like, embraces conflict. Like he's so, that's what I really admire and respect about him. Like he's so good with man on the street. He's so good with like just going up to people. He has balls of steel.
Yeah.
And also he's such a ham. Like he like comes alive on camera. Like he really is.
I really like his newsman thing too, though, when he gets on like a show.
Stuff,
it's very cool.
There's this weird thing with Alex where like I'll watch like a video and I'll go, this is fucking hilarious. But then I'll get to 3 and I'll be like, I think that's enough Alex for me. And then I'll take
overload.
And then I'll think I don't like Alex Stein anymore. Then 2 weeks later, I'll see like the Crenshaw thing or the Eric Swalwell thing. I'll go, oh, that's right. I like Alex. I'll watch 2 more. I'll be like, I don't know. Then he did the Dave Portnoy thing and I went, oh, that's great.
It's like our Alex Stein cup gets full and then it overflows and then you got to wait for it to go down a little bit more.
But well,
think about like Aaron Judge. Like he hit 62 home runs in a season, but like how many at bats did he have? So like same thing with somebody like Alex. It's like like when he's only knocking them out of the park is because he's getting up at bats so many times. I think that's just good for anybody in a creative position.
And you don't see too many people get into it with like a Dave Portnoy and absolutely make Dave look like a dipshit. I mean, that was pretty great. I mean, that was pretty wild that he did that. But anyway, I was in the middle of, October 27th, Comedians of the Compound at the Orlando Improv. That sounds like a stacked lineup. Check that one out. And of course, tonight, if you're in the Northeast, Bridgeport, Connecticut, the Stress Factory. Tonight, Chrissie Mayr will be there. ChrissieMayr.com, Chrissie Mayr on YouTube, The Wet Spot on Compound Media, Mondays at 6 o'clock Central Time. Chrissy, thank you very much. Congratulations again to you and Frank, and best of luck going forward.
I want to have you guys both on the show. I definitely want to get you, April, on Simcast, so we'll have to schedule that soon.
All right. Well, I am always down for anything. I am a complete show whore.
Okay. He is a whore.
Okay, good. Okay, good.
All right. Chrissy, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, love you guys.
All right. Everyone else, take it easy. We'll be back tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. Central.